Without further ado, I'm going to do this right now. I'm doing a step study of my own 12-step program, Limerence Anonymous. The 12-step program, I thank Bill W. for it. I thank St. Augustine for SLAA. And my own program is Limerence Anonymous, Lima. I hope it catches on. I was starting to read this paragraph that AI helped me to write. Analysis of step 1. We admitted we were powerless over limerence, that our lives had become unmanageable. Understanding limerence. I couldn't even get through this paragraph just now. I couldn't even get through it, and I'll tell you why. Dorothy Tenev coined the term limerence. She was a psychologist, and she coined the term limerence in 1970, in the 1970s. Not in 1970, in the 1970s. I was 3 years old. My family and I came out from Missouri when I was 3 years old in the 1970s, and stuff was starting to happen. It was around the time or after what was called the sexual revolution, and I call it the sexual assassination because it overwhelmed out of probably thousands and thousands of Generation X children. People born in my time. I was born in 1967, and those that were born in 1967 or 1970 or the like, I think there's like even a boundary. If you were born between 1967 and 1980, you're Generation X. And you could have been exposed and subjected to the behavior of the adults before you. And you could have been, I know I was. I'll share my own experience, strength, and hope. I was subjected to and exposed to a lot of inappropriate behavior that probably made me very hyper-aroused and addicted and obsessed and precocious about sex and love and relationships of that nature. And I got very upset when I was reading this paragraph. The paragraph that AI helped me write in the passage that AI helped me write was on step 1, analysis of step 1, understanding limerence. Limerence is a term coined by psychologist Dorothy Tenev in the 1970s. And that's not even the end of the sentence. I got upset and I had to stop. I'll tell you why. Because back in that day, in 1970, my family and I had just come to California. And I was dealing with behavior in the family, in the neighborhood, and in the city, and in the country in general. I'm American, in America in general. You know, the hippie age, the hippie era, and the sexually explicit behavior and implicit behavior that seemed to keep going on and made me very precocious, very addicted, very obsessed, very hyper-aroused as a little girl even. And there was a psychologist. Now, I don't know, maybe she only treated or dealt with adults. Maybe this was only an adult thing, but it wasn't talked about. If you had feelings like that when you were a child, you were either inappropriate or you just had little puppy love crushes on people. You know, you had little crushes on people, and you could just get over it. You're going through a phase, little girl. You're going through a stage, little girl. One of the songs that I wrote this. AI put it to music. Producer AI put it to music last fall, and something about forget about it, honey, forget about it, girl. I was invalidated and discounted and dismissed all through my childhood. When I even had trouble with limerence as a child. Limerence is described by Dorothy Tenev as an intense, involuntary romantic attraction characterized by obsessive thoughts and feelings about another person. Now, I'm going to see if I can rephrase that in age-appropriate language, as if I'm talking to my inner child. There is something called limerence. Can you say limerence? Okay, that's good enough. Limerence is a term coined by someone named Dorothy Tenev. in the year 1970 on, to describe the feelings that you're having, little girl. You can't stop thinking about the person that you're in love with, that you feel like you're in love with. You just can't stop thinking about them. You're on them all the time, and you're always talking about them. It often includes a longing for emotional reciprocation. In other words, little girl, you want them to love you back so much. You're upset. You feel like you want to cry. You feel like you want to even get angry. You feel scared when these feelings aren't returned. You think you're a bad person because you're not being loved back by this person. Understanding limerence is crucial for individuals who feel overwhelmed by their emotions and behaviors related to it. Now, behavior isn't necessarily stalking. I'll talk to the adult again. Behavior is not necessarily stalking. It can include it, but it's not limited to it. You can shut down. You can just be overwhelmed and not feel like leaving the house. I was one of those people that didn't want to leave the house, didn't like school, didn't want to deal with school, didn't want to deal with life, because I couldn't stop thinking about this person or these people. And I had multiple limerent interests. It wasn't all at the same time, but it was like, if you want to call it something, it was like serial monogamy type love. It was like 1 month I would be on one celebrity, the next month I would be on another one, or it would be a character from a book, or a character in a movie, or it would be another celebrity, or it would be even somebody that I made up in my head. But or if it was, God forbid, somebody at school, that was horrible, because I did have crushes on boys and girls at school. It was mostly boys at school. I didn't know I was bi until I was 16. But I think if I'd had a crush on a girl, I would have known it. But happenstance, I had crushes on boys, and that was just as bad. I mean, it doesn't matter what orientation you are, if you can't stop thinking about a person. But my point is that the thing that made me so upset was, it wasn't talked about. It wasn't talked about by adults. If it was talked about by adults, it was in music, it was in poetry, it was in the movies. It was even in the family. Oh, I can't stop thinking about this person. Oh, I've got to get over them. They're married, or they're not available. They're not. I'm not old enough to have them. I'm not young enough. I'm just an old lady. I'm just a little girl. And it was normalized. It wasn't treated like an issue. It wasn't treated like a painful. It wasn't treated like something that was hurting. That was, bothering you. Even when I went to counseling about my everyday problems, my family issues, my issues at school, when I went to counseling as a child, usually the conversation went like this. Oh, Carol, how did your day go today? Are you making any new friends? Are you coping with the bullying? Are you doing okay with your grades? It was just normal, regular old stuff. And even when I talked about crushes, and I couldn't stop talking about them, they kept saying, "Oh, Carol, you'll find the right person when you grow up. When you get older, you'll get married. You'll find the right person. Love is a wonderful thing, and you guys, you guys will forget about it by the time you're old enough, and all that." It was like I never felt like it was really validated, and I was hurting a lot. I was in so much psychological pain every day. Okay, I'm gonna continue reading this. I'm not sure what good it'll do really, but I'm gonna at least read the part about powerlessness. The first step in many recovery programs, including those inspired by AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, emphasizes the importance of admitting powerlessness over the addiction or behavior in question. In this context, acknowledging powerlessness over limerence means recognizing that one cannot control their feelings or the outcomes of their romantic pursuits. This admission is essential as it allows individuals to confront the reality of their situation without denial or minimization. Yeah, and I went through a lot of minimization when I even tried to address it, even in counseling again. So, the part about outcomes of romantic pursuits. I don't think I can say that I pursued anyone at school or wherever I was, and I certainly couldn't pursue anybody like celebrities, but it seemed like the same pattern kept happening. I would get a crush on somebody at school, and I would try to hide it, and I would try to still be their friend if we were friends, but it always came out. The anxiety always manifested itself, and they always either knew or they always wondered if something was wrong, and I would just, I would just get so anxious about it. And even when they said, I like you as a friend, everything's cool, the friendship would end because the anxiety would just get so bad that it would be sabotaged. That was usually how it ended with me. But either way, whatever the behavior is, whatever the problem is, it's destructive. It's painful. It hurts. Self-reflection, behavioral patterns, impact on daily life. Yeah, exactly. I'll read the part about impact. Acknowledging how limerence has made life unmanageable involves assessing its impact on various aspects such as work, relationships, mental health, and overall well-being. Well, it would usually affect me at school, and after I became an adult, it would affect how I functioned in my life. Even when I was doing service work, I was involved in 12-step programs. When I was doing service work, when I was interacting with the group members, and I used to get crushes on group members. Yes, I did. I won't lie and say I didn't. Relationships. Yep, it affected my relationships with the people I was friends with. It affected the way I even acted toward my family. I would get envious of my aunt because she always managed to have a relationship, and I always struggled. But later on, I knew that she was also settling for people that she couldn't, settling for people that didn't love her fully. So as an adult, I realized she had her own issues with relationships. But back in that life, back in that day, I perceived her as always being able to love somebody, and I got envious. So this affected how I related to my family. This affected how I related to my roommate. This affected how I interacted with the world at large. Here's another example from the reading. Someone might find themselves unable to focus at work due to their constant daydreaming about their crush. Yes, I used to daydream about being Brunhilde or Xena warrior princess type. I used to fantasize about rescuing them. Yes, rescuing men, rescuing the boys I had crushes on at school. I would I guess maybe it's a women's movement thing. I grew up in the women's movement. I always felt like I wanted to rescue my crushes. I would picture them in some kind of a struggle, and I would fantasize about rescuing them. Usually I would have these daydreams when I had to go on a long drive anywhere, or even at school when they were showing movies or stuff that didn't require a lot of concentration in the classroom. I would daydream. I wouldn't daydream during class, but I would daydream maybe during a presentation or something. If I had to go to the auditorium or assembly with the other kids, I would sit there and daydream about these people. Yeah, disruption of daily activities, and I already covered emotional distress, avoidance behaviors. Yeah, I didn't like leaving the house. I didn't like having to socialize and deal with people. And I had a lot of bittersweet mixed feelings about going someplace where my crush was, where my limerent person was. Dependency on external validation, that's a big one. The need for validation from the object of limerence. I don't like to call them objects, but my idea of them. The need for validation from the idea of the person. can create a cycle where one's self-worth becomes tied solely to another person's actions or feelings. So I would watch them all the time, and they didn't like me watching, but I would make sure they weren't sneaking up on me from behind. I'm talking about school because that's a big example. I would make sure they didn't catch me doing something human, doing something humble, like eating lunch or crossing the room to the cloakroom to get something out of my coat pocket and tripping over something. I didn't want them to watch me go and sharpen my pencil or do anything that needed action where the whole class could potentially look up and watch me. I didn't even like walking down the hall and wondering if I was going to run into them. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit, how I didn't feel like it was addressed in my life, and it just made things really hard for me. I hope it's addressed more in post-millennial times. It is a real issue. If this becomes a video podcast or a podcast and teenagers are listening, or even children are listening, I think parental guidance should be warranted. But I want to address this in age appropriate terms. If you have feelings about someone, you're not alone. People of all ages have this problem. It could be at normal levels of crushes, or it could be a big feeling like you can't stop it, or you can't stop, what might happen, and it can be a scary thing. And for adults, of course, you're not alone. Teenagers, you're not alone. It's okay to try and talk to someone about it. Talk to an adult. If you have an adult you trust in or outside your family, yeah, it's a big deal. It's something that it's okay to address. Just make sure it's someone you trust, someone you feel safe with. I don't know if my email address is in this where you're watching me, but I'll see if I can make a point of putting my email address somewhere. I want someone to be able to contact me. I also want you guys to know that I'm not a professional. I am just into mental health because it's personally a very interesting topic, obviously because of the pain I've been through. You're not alone, okay? Talk later. God bless you.